In April, I told you that Donald Trump was beating Biden in the swing states. We are now looking at the swing states again, because this time it appears not only is he beating him in most of the swing states, but he is beating him significantly. And if you are Joe Biden and you're a part of the Biden campaign, you should be very much concerned. We're going to start with this panel here from News Nation. Then we're going to get into some of these numbers and break them down. And then we're going to play a little bit. We're going to play 270 to win, right? I'm going to go back and show you some things because I made a prediction and I was right about it. I was right about one of these. Let's dive in.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. So we got another glimpse today of former President Trump's lead in the key swing states. Polling from the New York Times and Siena College shows Trump leading in 5 of the main battleground states.
Pause there. This is absolutely embarrassing if you are the incumbent and you just beat this dude in 2020. It is embarrassing. And some people are going to tell me it's still early. I get it. Red Sox fans are saying the same thing. It's still early. November will be here before you know it, guys. It'll be here before you know it. How did it get to be this way?
Comfortably leading in 3 of them. But here's what caught my attention. The poll had roughly 4,100 voters across the 6 main states. And those respondents, by a margin of 49 to 46, said they voted for President Biden in 2020. However, when asked right now about their party affiliation or which way they lean, 46% said Republican, 44% said Democratic. So why is that? It seems like, Ashley, you have this group here, these 4,000 who were +3 for Biden in 2020, but now are +2 Republican. There's got to be something going on there.
Well, I think people are still angry. So there's obviously the people that are 100% Democrat, 100% Trump, that are never going to lose. And I think it's like 36, 38. I mean, you know, these
somewhere
numbers,
in there.
Yeah. But the independents, if they're looking at this, even though they don't like all the Trump rhetoric, they do still hate their groceries are higher, they hate inflation, and they hate the border and crime. And
isn't this what I said a couple of months ago? I said this on Rising a couple months ago. I said, number one issue for most people is the economy. And even when it comes to the immigration issue, we're also hearing from, like I said, I'm now, for the first time in my adult life, I'm hearing complaints from Black voters about the border. And when I said that, people were like, oh, Sabby, you're trying to feed into the right wing. I'm like, no, I'm just listening to people on the ground and not mainstream media. Listening to people in the community and not mainstream media. If you go into some of those communities, you'll understand where I'm coming from and why they're making those statements.
So when you go to the polls, do you vote for him even though you don't like anything that he says in regards to the rhetoric? But do you think his policies are stronger? I think that's where the numbers are, but I think it's early. Yeah, and so, I think you two are going to disagree with me.
No.
And I would love to hear what you say, because you think, I mean, it's still early, but I think people are just frustrated.
I agree with everything, really, because even the point that, but it's still early, right? The ... part Ashley added, I agree with it. It's still early, right? We haven't had the conventions, like who's Trump going to pick as VP? There's a lot of these unanswered questions. The economy going to get better. But Fareed Zakaria had a very alarming opening to his show for Democrats. I mean, he literally made the case.
When you've lost him?
Right, made a case of why he's very concerned about Biden's ability to win re-election. And he brought up a point about inflation that has kind of bugged me for a long time. It's like, unemployment is, yes, low, but unemployment affects the people that are unemployed. Inflation affects everyone.
Right.
In every aspect of our economy. And that is what's dragging the president. And it's being stubborn. It won't come down. And that, I think, is a lagging indicator here. I do think the Trump trials and et cetera, there's a lot of X factors in this election. Like, we're not looking at October surprise. I think we're looking at several false surprises. And so we'll see how this ends up at the end. But it's not a great situation for Democrats.
One other point.
Pause here for just a second when he talked about unemployment and inflation. So we have to remember who's included in the unemployment rate. Like, obviously, that's not everyone that doesn't have a job. If you don't have a job, but you live with your parents, whether you're an adult, but you live with your parents and kind of doing that failure to launch thing, what do they used to call it? There was a movie about that. Anywho, you're not included in that unemployment rate. You're not head of household. So you're not included in that. So not everyone is a part of that. Then you have to remember that Joe Biden actually removed people from unemployment, right? So that also explains why that number has decreased as much as it has. It's not to say that he has not created jobs. He has created jobs, but he also kicked people off of unemployment. And I think, nuance is important to discuss here. When it comes to the inflation, this is something I've been warning people about for over a year. Look, man, the grocery store prices are still high. And not only that, but I don't know if you guys have noticed, have any of you tried to do takeout recently? The takeout prices are higher. But if you go into the restaurant, you'll notice the items on the menu, all of a sudden it costs more to get something that you were able to get like $2 cheaper, a year ago. So you have to pay attention to those things. So it's a double whammy. It's the unemployment issue and the people who are not a part of that, right? And then there's also the inflation issue. And for the people who are saying, well, he created these new jobs and wages are actually higher, does it really matter that wages are higher if we still have inflation? No. You're not getting a leg up. You're probably lucky if you're breaking even.
In the poll that was, I think, brought up is that among minorities, you're seeing President Biden not poll as well with African Americans. Trump got 20%. That's the highest we've seen. And although it's still absolutely so early, Republicans I've chatted with today have essentially said, look, this is all a reflection of inflation in the economy. In Biden's interview last week with CNN saying, well, the polls aren't reflecting the economy, et cetera. That's not meeting voters where they are. That's frustrating. I think some Democrats I've talked to who have said, look, you've got to do more than that and just say, no, what you're feeling, isn't actually happening.
Nick, I know you're itching to get in, but Scott, key demographics here, 18 to 29-year-olds, Trump +4. Black voters, Joe Biden's only at 49%, Hispanic.
Pause there for just a second. Fast food no longer helps the common man. The dollar menu is a thing of the 90s. I'm telling you guys, and don't try to honestly, I was going to order something from DoorDash, right? And I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty cheap. And I got to the part where, you're supposed to pay for it. And I was like, oh, heck yeah, only $15. Then I look at the bottom of the total and all of a sudden it's like $25. And I'm like, wait a minute, where did the extra $10 come from? The service fees have increased, whether it's DoorDash or Grubhub, those have increased. So now it's like you are paying more. And this is what I've been trying to explain to people who continue to say the economy is doing great. The economy is not doing great for the everyday working class person. Now let's check out some of these numbers when it comes to demographics and Joe Biden. I'm going to go back just a little bit because I cut him off.
Key demographics here, 18 to 29-year-olds, Trump +4. Black voters, Joe Biden's only at 49%. Hispanic voters, it is a tie between him and Trump.
Yeah, that's a small sample one.
Pause. So you see this 18 to 29-year-olds, Donald Trump is beating in that category, which is interesting. I still have not figured that part out, right? If we're talking about Gaza, et cetera. But that could be economy, right, as well. And then if we look at Black vote, see, I told you how this continues to increase. Let's remember last year when I talked about these numbers, Donald Trump had 11% of Black support. He now has 14. Come November, he could very much get to 20%. I'm trying to warn people about this. It's been steadily increasing. Joe Biden has 49%. How do you drop that low as a Democrat, right, with African Americans because you did a poor job as president and you reneged on some of your campaign promises? RFK Jr. has 11% of the Black vote. And then the Hispanic vote, it shows that they're tied here. But I would argue that's probably going to go towards Donald Trump as we get closer and closer to November. Let's go on.
Two, Biden needs to stop talking about the statistics vis-a-vis the economy and talk to real people and talk to people directly about how they're suffering and how hard he's working. But here's the deal. There is a lot of time, but the reality is that sample of voters and a lot of American voters have gotten amnesia when it comes to Donald Trump and all the corruption, chaos, and criminal conduct he brings to the table. And as we get closer to the election, you're going to see a crystallization of these two candidates because nobody's really paying that much attention.
Are they having amnesia?
No, I just want to say this really quick. I think this is important before we go to the next clip. Bills don't care about criminalization. When people are struggling to pay their bills, they're not thinking about someone's criminalization. They're thinking about how they're going to pay those damn bills. So when they're looking at the kitchen table issues, when they're looking at their wallet, they're looking at their bank account, and they're noticing the difference between Trump's presidency and Biden's presidency, they are willing to overlook the criminal issues at play right now to have extra money in their pocket. Say it with me, folks. We can make it a slogan. Bills don't care about criminality. Now we're going to go to this clip here from MSNBC, where they actually admit, actually CNN, they actually admit on CNN that Biden is in trouble. So listen to this. It's kind of funny the way that he says it. Check this out.
Look, these Sunbelt battleground states, frankly, for the Joe Biden campaign, these numbers are an absolute disaster. The smallest lead is in Arizona for Donald Trump. He's up 6. Look at this, 9 in Georgia, 13 in Nevada. My goodness gracious, my God. That.
I'm sorry. That part is really funny when he says, my goodness gracious, my God. That was really funny. But these numbers, look at this. 13 points in Nevada. 13 points, 9 points in Georgia, 6 points in Arizona. And we'll get to the other ones. Now, I warned you about Nevada a month ago. I'm going to show you a flashback of that in just a second, because I told you one of the mistakes that the Democratic Party was doing is that they were overlooking Nevada, or excuse me, ignoring Nevada. They were so focused on Georgia and Michigan that they were not focusing on Nevada, and they weren't focusing on Arizona. And I thought that that was a big mistake. Just because Joe Biden won those states in 2020, considering the way the economy is and the complaints that people have about the border, those are those border states. And it's not like Nevada was a dark blue, it was a light blue. Arizona is kind of purple. It can easily go back to being red. So it was a mistake for them to overlook that and just pretend like Nevada was in the bag. So let's check it out.
That is a huge lead. No Democrat has lost that state since John Kerry lost it back in 2004. How about these Great Lake battleground states? This is something that the Joe Biden campaign can work with. Look, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump up 3, but that's well within the margin of error. Wisconsin, Donald Trump up 1, well within the margin of error. And actually a Joe Biden lead well within the margin of error, up a point here. This they can work with the Joe Biden campaign. This, the Donald Trump campaign, absolutely loves. And it looks like a lot of the other polling on the Sunbelt battlegrounds.
When you're looking.
Pause here. So he has gained 1 point in Michigan, but considering the fact that he won Michigan and, you know, he is the incumbent, Joe Biden should be beating Donald Trump by more than that in Michigan. That is the problem. Now, you know, the uncommitted campaign actually started in Michigan. We'll have to see what happens with that state in particular. I think that will be really close. I still don't think he's going to win Michigan. I could be wrong about that in November. We will see. But we know that he cannot win without Michigan. We're going to play around with that in just a second. We're going to have some fun.
Into the numbers, why do you think Biden is doing better in the Great Lakes and Trump is doing so much better in the Sun Belt?
Yeah, the Trump coalition is changing. That's basically what's cooking here. This is at least one of the big reasons why. So this is among likely voters in all these battleground states we just spoke about. Back in 2020, 84% of the Trump campaigns, the Trump coalition was white. Look where it is now. It's 78%. The non-white portion of the Trump coalition, it was 13% in 2020. Look at this now. It's 19%.
But this is important, guys. I told you that Donald Trump is gaining more Hispanic voters and he's gaining more African-American voters, some of them whom voted for Joe Biden in 2020. And I warned people that this could happen. You got to remember the states that he's winning in as well. If we just want to take a look back at those states where he has that big lead. So again, Nevada, that's pretty close to the border, right? Arizona, border state. Georgia was a red state before Biden won in 2020. And I told you, I did not think it was going to remain a blue state, that it would eventually go back to being red. Pennsylvania, I'm not sure about. And if you're from Pennsylvania, maybe you can talk to me a little bit about what's happening there, right? Like why Trump is winning there. Wisconsin, that one's going to be close. It says Trump up 1 point right now too, but I'm assuming some of the same issue that's happening in Wisconsin and Michigan could be similar in reference to that uncommitted vote. So let's go back to this piece here where he talks about that coalition.
Battleground states we just spoke about. Back in 2020, 84% of the Trump campaigns, the Trump coalition was white. Look where it is now. It's 78%. The non-white portion of the Trump coalition, it was 13% in 2020. Look at this now. It's 19%. So the Trump coalition is becoming more diverse. And of course, those Sunbelt battleground states are more diverse than the Great Lake battleground states.
You're looking at the Nevadas and the Arizonas here.
Of course, if you look at Nevada, Arizona, heavy Hispanic population, Georgia, heavily African-American population, with the Michigan does have some black voters in it, but Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are heavily, heavily white.
It's very interesting. Okay, add it all up. What does this say about where the race stands right now? We're talking Electoral College and the race to 270.
Yeah, the race to 270. It's advantage Donald Trump, but he's not over the 270 mark just yet, all right? So if we flip Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia here in your lighter shades of pink, you add them to the states, and of course the 2nd Congressional District up in Maine, which Donald Trump won last time around, that gets him to 268 electoral votes. If we keep Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in the too close to call category, along with Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District, Joe Biden at 225. So it's advantage Donald Trump, but Joe Biden does at this point have a path to 270.
So let's play with this ourselves. Eric, can you bring up part 2 of Type VNC, and we're going to play 270 to win ourselves. We're going to figure out different scenarios, different things that could, possibly happen. Plus, I like playing. I like to play. Oh, thank you so much for that, Eric. Oh, wait, before we play, sorry, just a reminder about Nevada. What I told you about Nevada, this was in April. I'm going to make a prediction. Let's start with Nevada. I think Nevada is slept on. I really do. I am going to paint Nevada a light red. Nevada is one of those states that RFK Jr. is actually performing pretty well in the polls. I looked at this the other day. Also, Nevada is in a solid dark blue, right? It is a swing state. Nevada can go either way. And I'm also making Nevada a light red state because of the immigration issue. I think without all the concerns that people have about the border that they're talking about, I think that could be a deciding factor in reference to Nevada. So I'm making that a light red to go to the Republicans, to go to Donald Trump. So that was 1 month ago, and now you see that Donald Trump has gained significantly in Nevada. Now, let's play. You guys ready to play? Let's play a little bit. 270 to win. So we are going to try out different scenarios here, right? So again, 270 to win. And we are going to focus on those swing states because honestly, at the end of the day, that is what it takes to win here. Now, one scenario that I've already mapped out, I do want to show you. I did this one earlier, so it actually saved it. That's really cool. All right. 272 for Republicans, 266 for Democrats, right? And this is this scenario when we're looking at the swing states. I said, let's pretend Nevada does go back to Joe Biden. So let's give him that back for right now. And let's say Arizona is going to remain like it's going to be a light red. It's not going to be blue this time around. I highly really think that because of the complaints from people in the border states, particularly, probably except for New Mexico, particularly, I think that Arizona is going to be red again, right? I said that last time. I still stand by that. Let's give him back Nevada. Arizona is going to be light red. Let's swing on over here to Georgia. Georgia is going to go back red, which I said before. North Carolina, we're going to keep that light red. Oh, wait, I didn't change that one. Sorry. Pennsylvania, we're going to give to Joe Biden, light blue. We're going to give Michigan to Joe Biden, light blue. And we're going to give Wisconsin to Donald Trump. And then you have those congressional districts in Nebraska and Maine as well. Now, notice what I did here. I gave Joe Biden back Michigan, and I gave him Nevada. This is to show you that without Michigan, it seems like he can't win. And look, I'll show you why. So that gives the Democratic Party 266 electoral votes, and that gives Donald Trump 272 electoral votes. Remember, it's 270 to win. This is why I said I think he needs Michigan. Now, let's go back to what we had before. Let's give Nevada to Trump since he's winning there right now. We're going to keep Arizona red because he's winning there as well. Georgia, we're going to keep red. We're going to give, let's say, Pennsylvania. Oh, he's winning Pennsylvania. He's winning Pennsylvania by 1 point. So we're going to make that a light red. Biden is winning Michigan by 1 point. So we'll leave that there. And Trump is winning Wisconsin by 1 point. That gives the Republicans 297, and that gives the Democrats 241. Now, that is where it stands right now, today, based on that poll. That is really bad for the incumbent, right? Really bad. One more thing we're going to try to change to look at another scenario. Let's pretend that Joe Biden wins Pennsylvania. We'll make it a light blue. Pennsylvania, light blue. Okay. And let's say that he actually wins Wisconsin as well, because Trump has a 1 point lead there. So let's say he does actually pull away with Wisconsin. In this scenario, and he gets Michigan, that gives him 270, and that gives the Republican 268. So what this shows you, folks, is that when it comes to that 270 for Joe Biden, he needs Michigan to win. Donald Trump, however, does not need Michigan to win. And in this scenario that I just gave you, he actually needed to win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. This is important for people to see. If Donald Trump wins Nevada and Arizona, Joe Biden needs Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin in order to win. Now, that being said, I just want to remind you, you don't have to vote for either one of them. I really think this is a chance to move towards third party, right? Like, we've been talking about this for 2 years, 2.5 years. I really think this is a chance for us to come out in large numbers and support a third party. And I told you, I think that best bet is Jill Stein. She's going to have that ballot access. I know some of you are deciding between Dr. West and Jill Stein. The reality is, if Dr. West is not on the ballot in your state, then the question becomes, can you write him in? And depending on the state, you may not be able to do so. And that's what people have to understand about the rules of write-in campaigns. You can't just always write somebody in. And I say this about moving towards and getting this third party movement up and going. And it needs to be a lasting thing, not just for this election, is because you can see the disgust from the American people. Because check this out, folks. When it says Trump leads in 5 key states as young and non-white voters express discontent with Biden. So I want to show you one quote here. We just looked at those polls. We don't need to see that again. Let me move down here. Put in here. Just making sure I'm getting to the part. And they're talking about Gaza. They're going through those numbers again. This part, the findings reveal widespread dissatisfaction with the state of the country and serious doubts about Mr. Biden's ability to deliver major improvements to American life. A majority of voters still desire the return to normalcy promised by Mr. Biden in the last campaign, but voters in the battleground states remain particularly anxious, unsettled, and itching for change. This is the part I want to read. I want you to remember from this article, if nothing else. Nearly 70% of voters say that the country's political and economic systems need major changes or even to be torn down entirely. 70% of American voters, they are saying that the country's political and economic system need major changes or even to be torn down completely. That's the majority. Now is the time. That's not 30%. That's not 40%. That's 70%. Now's the time.